So finally, I just wanted to just talk about how parasites have continued to sort of infect my mind, because it just so happens that a book of mine is coming out right now about viruses. It's called A Planet of Viruses. And I kind of left viruses out of the Parasite Rex because I wanted to focus on less familiar organisms. And I was particularly interested in the way that animals and plants and fungi can become parasitic. The thing with viruses is that it's not terribly surprising to people that viruses are parasites. I mean, they're just pure parasites. I mean, they're just stripped down to the essence of parasite, really. They infect a host cell and they commandeer it and they produce more parasites, in this case viruses. But it's really quite remarkable, like all the different strategies that they can use. And they can give rise to myths, like the jackalope. So if you've ever been out west, you might see in a postcard rack a picture of a jackalope like this. Or you might have even seen one mounted on the wall, And if you look up closely, you see that they glued a little animal force to the head of a rabbit. The fact is, however, that there are rabbits you can see with growths, horn-like growths on their head. And it was actually the discovery of these growths, the jackalope itself, that led to the discovery of papillomaviruses. And papillomaviruses are the cause of cervical cancer. So they're a huge threat to human health. What happens is that these viruses, they've chosen a particularly weird strategy. What they do is they infect a cell, but they don't kill the cell in the process. They actually speed the growth of the cell up, so it starts dividing faster. As it divides, it makes more viruses. Now, the virus infects the skin, your skin cells, and you're always shedding skin cells. So it's a nice little balance it has. I mean, a lot of you probably have papillomavirus on your skin right now. But you're in kind of a nice little balance with it. At worst, maybe you have like a little wart or something. Papillomavirus are incredibly successful. But every now and then things get out of kilter. So for example, if they get transmitted through sex, in a woman's cervix, they can cause cancer. They can also cause cancer on the skin sometimes. And in a particularly gruesome situation, what can happen is that if people have a compromised immune system, the virus just causes the skin to just grow and grow and grow really, really rapidly and create really extravagant growths on humans. So let me just show you a picture real quick. I'm going to avert your eyes if you don't like it. But this is a guy in Indonesia who's known as the tree man. He's got papillomavirus on his skin. And he was discovered actually basically in a freak show. And doctors, cut away all of these growths and then they come right back. So he's in a constant battle with papillomavirus, which literally like grows things to incredible lengths. One of the things I try to talk about in the virus book, Planet of Viruses, is that parasites, I would argue, are like the most successful life form out there. For every free living species, there are probably 3 or 4 parasites. But viruses, they win hands down. So if you think about how many viruses there are on Earth, there are a lot. If you had a lot of free time on your hand and you stacked viruses one on top of the other, let's just say you're bored. You would stack a pile 100 million light years high. You wouldn't just go to the nearest galaxy, you'd go past the nearest galaxy with viruses. Viruses are the most abundant life form on Earth, and they're everywhere. This is just a picture of a cave about half a mile underground where giant crystals grow and where the water is near boiling. There are bacteria that live in that water, and there are lots of viruses, hundreds of millions of viruses in every little spoonful of water in there. Wherever there's life on Earth, there are viruses. And finally, the last thing I just wanted to talk about in terms of viruses, and I'm particularly mind-blowing, is how viruses can change their host genetically. So sometimes when the virus infects a cell, it actually inserts its DNA into the cell's own genome. And so actually, the virus gives the cell a gene, or several genes. Now, those genes might make bacteria resistant to antibiotics. And actually, it turns out that a lot of the bacteria in the ocean that take in sunlight and produce oxygen, their photosynthesis, the genes for the photosynthesis, they get from viruses. So the viruses floating around in the ocean are photosynthesis genes. They infect a host, they plug in the genes, and then, only then, do the bacteria start to do photosynthesis. And these bacteria give off a huge amount of the world's oxygen. So every time you take in a breath, you're breathing in virus oxygen. And then, just finally, I mean, perhaps the greatest, the thing that I think would terrify Lancaster is that our own genome, the human genome, is full of viruses, full of DNA from viruses that infected us long ago. There are probably about 100,000 segments of DNA in the human genome that can be traced to viruses that are related to HIV, for example, and infected our ancestors. If you take all of the genes that encode proteins that make us, as it were, and then if you take all of the DNA that makes up the viruses that we all carry with us, there's about 6 or 7 times more virus DNA in our genome than protein-coded DNA. So maybe 6 or 7 times more parasite than human. I guess, just in closing, I just say that I welcome our parasite overlords. And if we have time for questions, Toby, I'd be happy to take them. Thank you.